Good morning, everyone. Today is such an exciting day because it is officially Smithsonian Day. I'm in DC and they are revealing the exhibit today for my talent costume for their Women's History exhibit in the Natural Museum, which is American History Museum. So yeah, I'm in DC. I'm with my cousins. We had such a fun weekend. These cousins are so special to me because I actually lived with them. In 2013, they were living in Raleigh at the time, North Carolina, and I actually moved in with them because I was studying for the MCAT. Yes, doesn't that feel like a lifetime ago? I was studying for the MCAT and I wanted to get out of my parents' house basically, and they were like, you need to get out of your parents' house. And they were like, come stay with us. And I did. And it was like one of the most fun times I remember having with them. Like, yes, I was still finding myself and discovering what I wanted and everything, but this was January of 2013. And for those of you who don't know, I won Miss America in September of 2013. So I was living with them in January and I watched Miss America with them that year in January. I think Ryan has my coffee and I want to get it from him. Did you get my coffee? The white chocolate mocha. Thank you. And so that was like truly that moment at my cousin's house in Raleigh, January 2013, where I was like, I'm doing this again. The decision had been made in that moment. Like I had to do this again. And so from that January onwards, I was studying for the MCAT, but I really wasn't. I was like, I'm pouring every single thing I have into winning Miss New York. And so the way you win Miss New York is you have to compete for a local title, and then you, so basically you compete at like your local regional area. And I wanted to compete for Miss Syracuse because that was my birth town, you know, that's where I was born, and it was meaningful for me to have that title. So the year before I was Miss Rochester. And so Miss Syracuse though was the last pageant like you could compete in. So before Miss New York. So they have like 26 different local pageants like Miss Rochester, Miss Syracuse, Miss New York City, you know, all of these different areas. And Miss Syracuse was the very last one. So if I didn't win this, like I wasn't going to Miss New York. And I was also 24 at the time. So I was like the oldest age limit. And so I really had one shot and I was like, nope, I'm gonna be Miss Syracuse because that's the way I want it to be and it's gonna be the most meaningful. And we're gonna go with that and see what happens. And so I basically just since January to March, Miss Syracuse was in March of 2013, I focused on like my talent, my interview, my fitness. I was like going all in on this pageant. And then I ended up winning Miss Syracuse. So I was like, whew, okay, we're going to Miss New York. So I won that weekend. And this is actually a fun fact. It was actually, I remember winning that weekend in March, and like the next week was like the first week of April, and it was March Madness, and it was Syracuse versus Michigan in the Final Four. Like it was crazy that happened. So I went to University of Michigan. So I was like, I'm very conflicted. So of like what I need to, who to cheer for. Plus I was like right out of college. Like it was obviously so much more like the weight of it felt like I'm Miss Syracuse, but I went to U of M. So like, who do I cheer for? I did both. I cheered for both. It was fine. It was okay, guys. It worked out. So I won Miss Syracuse, and then in July was Miss New York. And so I basically from April to July, I was again in like competition mode. I was like working on my talent. I was re-choreographing everything. This was the time I was still performing Tu Mere Dolna, and I was doing like more of a classical fusion piece because I'm a classically trained Bharatanatyam and Kuchipudi dancer. And so I remember also like during this time, because this was my second year back at New York and I was second runner-up last year, I went back to some of my judges who had judged me last year, and I asked them for feedback on my talent, because I was like, you know, this is my final year being able to compete at Miss New York, and I feel like I've always heard like mixed things about my talent. Like I would love kind of any feedback you may have. And I remember getting like very different feedback across the board. Like there was some who like absolutely loved it and were like, oh my gosh, like it was one of my favorite things about you. Like it was so genuine, and you could like tell how much you loved it and celebrated your culture and just like authentic to your story. Others were like, it was beautiful, but like it's just really hard as a judge to put a score on it because you're not really, you know, we're not really familiar with the art form. Like it's hard to put 1 to 10 because, you know, we just don't know how to judge it because we're just not trained or exposed to it. Which, like, you know, in 2013, I feel like Indian dance, Bollywood was still really not mainstream. Like to give you an idea, like Priyanka Chopra hadn't like fully crossed over. So there wasn't, you know, like Bollywood just wasn't as accessible as and global as it is today. I would say like the first exposure to it was like So You Think You Can Dance, and like they would do a Bollywood like sort of night, I guess. But that was kind of like the extent of it. And so I remember like obviously choosing to do this, like they're like, if you have any other talent, I would consider maybe changing your talent because it just feels like Miss America really isn't ready for someone like you. Change your talent. And I'm like, okay. I was like, okay, well, I can sing. I'm not as good of a singer or confident of a singer as I am dancer, especially at that time because I had no vocal training officially. I had liked to sing and I knew I had a decent voice, but like, you know, I was competing with people at Miss New York who were going to Juilliard and NYU, and like this was their life passion, like had trained their entire life to like be a performer and be a vocalist, and like were so competitive at these schools. And obviously I was not on that level yet. And so that's when I was like, you know what, like I really need to like think and reflect about this because this is like, how do I really want to like present myself? The other thing too, because Miss New York was in July and Miss America is in September, you didn't have time to change your talent in between. Like I was like, whatever I choose to do at Miss New York, I am going to be doing at Miss America. Like there's literally 2 months, like there's so much to do that you can't learn like an entirely new talent. So I was like, I have to like make a decision and stick with it. That also there's a little hiccup in that process too. And so at the end of the day, ultimately I said, you know, if I was going to win Miss America, win Miss New York, it really came down to, I have to lay my head on my pillow at night and know that I have represented myself truly and authentically. And the most like thing that was so special and meaningful to me was being a dancer, like especially being trained in Bharatanatyam and Kuchipudi. Like I grew up classical Indian dance. Like I would go to every summer and learn from the dance master. I was on like a fusion dance team in college, and like I just loved the art form. Like I will always say, like there's something so just beautiful and graceful about it that is so me. Like that's just how I carry myself in the world, and like I could not imagine changing that about me to win a pageant. Like I was like, no, if I'm gonna win, it's gonna be in my way. So I won Miss New York with this talent, and it was still Meridolina. And then, you know, I won Miss New York, yay. That was a whole ride, which that's for another time to share. And then I remember, as you compete for Miss America, you submit your talent music. And ABC was not clearing my song choice of Meridolina. Like they just couldn't get the rights to it musically. And so they're like, we're sorry, you have to change your talent. I was like, what? It seems like a lot, but like basically, in addition to like preparing for Miss America, you are also doing the job in Miss New York. Like Miss New York is a full-time paid job. Like you are going to events, you're going to appearances, you're speaking, you're talking about your platform, you're in the community, you're working with Children's Miracle Network hospitals. You are doing something every day that is like a full-time job. And in addition to that full-time job, you are also like training for Miss America. So that's fitness, that's swimsuit, that's talent, that is swimsuit, that is, I think I said that, evening gown, interview. Interview is the biggest portion of competition, interview and then talent. And so like, you're working on your interviewing skills and honing it in and like all of these things. And like, you know, it's one thing to be like, yeah, I won Miss New York and that's great. But like, you're competing against the best of the best. Like you're going, like, these are the 52 of the most like brightest, best intellectual women in the nation. So like, you're trying to you're stepping up your game. Like you just have to. And so with that, like talent, usually people will say it's to your disadvantage to change because it is the second most weighted portion of competition. And like, because it's so much weighted, like you want to go in with a talent that you've known for years, it's in your body, you don't have to think twice on it, you can do it in your sleep. Like all of these things are things that people just like, you know. And I was like, great, like I'm already at a disadvantage because I have to learn a whole new routine. And so that's when I reached out to Nakul Dave Mahajan, and he was the choreographer for So You Think You Can Dance. And I was like, hey, I'm Miss New York, I'm going to Miss America, I need a whole new talent, like, can you help me choreo? And he was like, yes. And so he choreographed what you all saw. He choreographed Dum Tana for me, and I went out and worked with him for 2 days. I learned that routine in 2 days, and basically that was it. Like I think I had like 2 half days with him in the studio, sent on my way, and he's like, practice, practice, and that was it. And I was like, and I had probably 4 days of studio time and practice to actually get this into my brain and call it a day. And be ready for Miss America, or like drilling, and then kind of just like constantly running through it mentally in my head. Totally do believe like mental game changes everything, like running through it as much as I could in my head, listening to the music on my AirPods, like thinking about it on the subway, like in between all those little things, because I couldn't physically practice, trying to do all these other little things where I could at least get some practice in. Thank you. I need 5 more minutes. I'm almost done with my story.
It's not answering the question, but okay.
I feel like if we leave by 11, that's plenty of time. I just wanted to take a couple pictures by Washington Monument, which is right there, and then we can go to the museum. Thank you. I did my eyeliner and mascara off camera because we're on a time schedule. But I was saying, so basically I practiced, I get to Miss America, you have 2 times to run through your talent on the stage, and that is it. They keep it consistent for everyone, and so you have 2 times, and after the first time, you're allowed to like meet with your talent coach, which like, I didn't have a talent coach, so I was like, I just want to hang out with my sister during that time. I just like hung out with Mina after the first time. She was like, you're great. I was like, thank you, I'm excited. And then basically I performed it for the second time. I felt great, and then I had 1 night of preliminary competition, and then the final night of competition is what everyone saw. And obviously you guys know how that ended. And I feel like I should actually probably wait to do my lipstick. So outline it a little and not finish it. But I'm gonna wear my Miss America lipstick today because it feels very fitting. This is the exact one I used. It was L'Oreal Infallible Pro, and it's in the shade 815 Barely Nude. I always have this with me. I feel like today is like the perfect day because like it's my winning lipstick, wore it during my talent, wore it the whole night. But basically going back to that night, and I was asked to speak today at the Smithsonian, so I'm gonna say this during my speech. But like, I feel like my talent was truly my winning moment. Like I could feel it. And so I just remember that final night going into the competition, like it just felt like something bigger than me was going to happen. And, you know, I remember just at the end of my talent, like tears were in my eyes because I just never felt that experience before. And I think I shared that in my first video. But yeah, like that was, I just remember feeling so much of the energy and just all of it. And so for it to be celebrated today and to have that moment on the Miss America stage, to take you through the whole journey of just like even deciding to do this and the whole competition aspect of it was really special. And I remember like just relearning, I never knew how to do knee spins before this, and like it made me a better dancer, it made me a better performer, it just like pushed me out of my comfort zone, and to know that like what's, again, going back to what's meant to be yours will be yours, and you have to put in the work. There's no denying that. I mean, I put in the work to get this talent up and running and for it to be competitive. And, you know, the universe will have your back with the rest as long as you do your job in it. So yeah, that's kind of like the talent story. I didn't realize I was gonna be telling a story today, but it felt right to share kind of all of my memories associated with this, and have especially be staying with my family that like saw this journey from day one. And I was reminiscing with them about the 10 years ago, and we're like, we can't believe it's been 10 years. And Ryan is here this weekend for the first time, like staying with them. And we had like such a wonderful day yesterday of just memory lane, and obviously just life now and things. And yeah, it's just been a really, really special weekend. We had idlis and dosas yesterday. And I'm excited. We're gonna go to DC, and my mom is here, which I mentioned a million times. My two little cousins, my nieces and nephews, are also here. So I remember when I won, my niece was 2, my nephew was not even born yet. So that's how long it's been. And now they're like humans, like fully grown humans. And so they're here too. And yeah, so a little bit of Nina Pini is here today. And I'm just really excited. So I got my makeup on, this is my look. I wanted to keep it classic, iconic. It's daytime, you know, you don't need to be pageant, Nina. I just wanna feel good. And yeah, I feel like these are pictures that are gonna last forever in history and documented at the Smithsonian, which is crazy. So I will take you with me as much as I can, whilst also trying to stay, of course, present in the moment, because if I've learned anything, it's to be present in these moments. So we'll see if I can pass off the camera and kind of shoot a little bit behind the scenes, but I just really want to be here for that. So thanks for watching. I will see you in DC next. Well, I mean, it's like a 30-minute drive, so I will see you soon. Okay.